Welcome to the Navigator podcast.
Welcome to Module 13 of the Navigate Academy. Today we're talking about Six Sigma and process variation. With me today are two executives from Level 3 Audiovisual, Jeremy Elsesser, President, Jim Maltese, VP of Quality Standards. And Level 3, I mean, I've known both of you for many years, and you're just one of the companies in my book that just gets it in terms of the concepts of quality, measuring, improving, understanding your costs of non-conformance. I mean, you guys take the book and then wrote the book. So I just enjoy working with you because it's not an uphill battle. And again, you get it. So really looking at how do we take the cost of non-conformance out? You redo your callbacks, irritated customers. I mean, your referral base is huge. So today we're looking again at the principles of Six Sigma, from how do we reduce variation, as well as how do we solve problems in a robust problem solving methodology. But it's also culture. So Jeremy, culture starts at the top and the commitment to quality starts at the top. How do you get your employees, your suppliers, and your satisfied customers to kind of get on the bus and stay on the bus?
That's a great question, Brad. With using a cliche, it's definitely a lead by example conversation. And, as a big part of any Six Sigma or quality management mindset, it's really founded in our drive towards continuous improvement. And it's almost to a point at Level 3 where it's a constant conversation of how we can improve and how we can do better than the last time. Even when it went amazing, there's still just a mindset of, is there any opportunity here to create more of an amazing experience for the customer than the last time that we did that? And as it relates to keeping customers, employees, it's a big investment in training. Education for us is really a significant part of the coin, or the other side of the coin, of our commitment to quality, because ensuring that all of our people are trained up in the processes that are going to deliver quality, that are delivering best practices throughout the entire project lifecycle, is huge in not only building that mindset of continual improvement culture at Level 3, but also attracting new employees. It's also what our customers are most excited about when they learn about us for the first time, is our commitment to quality, our commitment to training, our commitment to always keeping up with where technology is headed and ensuring that we have the right skill set to manage that.
Awesome. And again, you guys practice what you preach. So to me, there's, some companies, the culture, you come in and it's hypocrisy. And you can just feel it when you walk in. It's a company that has a soul, and that soul is really your commitment to quality. So totally get it. Jim, I'll come to you in terms of VP of quality and your background. I mean, your whole warehouse staging practice, they're amazing. I mean, every part has its place. People go out to the job site. They're not missing stuff. They're not, no parts runs, all that stuff. What do you do to make that happen? I mean, what are some practices you've put in place? And then I'll do a follow-on that kind of sings to that same conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole idea of staging, in my opinion, is mocking up the entire system. And it's not just the rack. It's not just, the major parts of the system. It's the entire system. And so once you do that in a shop facility, you get to see all the pieces that are going to be needed to get that system in and installed. And so it's not just the big overarching things that engineering can catch. Once you actually stage it and you see it and you feel it, you get to know what bolts are required. You get to know what little adapters are required. And so that's the whole point of staging, is to figure out what kit should be assembled so that the installers have that much easier a time in the field.
And it's really, you got that down to a science. Again, I've been to your warehouse and there's walls all over the place to practice hanging mounts, hanging displays, this stuff, and your crews are excited when they're in there. It takes time and money to do that, but I'm just going to say, I'm sure you guys are reaping the benefits of just the lack of drama in the field.
Yeah, and that's what the quality guys say, right? Is if you don't pay attention to quality, if you don't pay attention to um, just variation steps and limiting that and keeping that streamlined, you're wasting 20 to 30% of your revenue. And so people say quality costs money, but it costs way more money to ignore it. And so the fact that we spend a little bit of time, just a fraction of the overall project time in quality assurance, we save a ton of money down the line. We save a ton of money on install cost and install time, and the endless warranty calls that might pop up if it's not done properly the first time.
Well, and then I'll say you have a workforce that's now available to do more jobs as opposed to redoing other jobs.
Exactly.
So I don't have to go hire a whole bunch of people because we just use them well.
Yeah.
And again, that 20 to 30% savings in terms of effort is amazing. Again, I don't have to go hire 5 people. Why? I'm using the ones I got well.
Yeah. It's always cheaper to install it one time, not 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
So Jeremy, in terms of like the benefits, what are some of the benefits that level 3 has achieved that you would attribute to your commitment to quality? So, and I'll just, I'm going to say net profit. You don't need to tell us what it is, but I know you got some versus a whole lot of people don't, because again, they're just bleeding out through overhead and redo. So what are some other intangible things that, if you could sell this and package it, how would you sell it?
That's another great question, and I alluded to it with the first answer. But one of the biggest intangibles that we get is talent acquisition. People naturally, I have found in this industry, want to try to work for people that are willing to push beyond the norm. And when you have a commitment to quality and a commitment to education and training on the level that we do, it's very, very enticing for technical minded people that are looking for organizations who are ready to invest in them. And quality is an investment. It's not just having a bunch of processes, but it's making sure that you take the time and energy to train your people appropriately on those processes so that they feel prepared and empowered to be able to deliver on that. The other thing I'll say as it relates to profit, consistency. Without giving you an actual number, it's consistency. Prior to leveraging a full quality management system like AV9000 and having as much opportunity to reduce custom, rethink it, redo it every single time mindset, our profit margin would vary depending on all the various factors that come along with a project. And not all of them can be managed just by pre-staging systems in a shop and managing quality from that perspective. But I will say that even in the most difficult of project scenarios and situations, adherence to a process like that significantly brings that range down and makes it a much more consistent profit margin. We are very, very good at coming in at or better than our estimated profit margin. And we definitely promote the fact that our quality management system is 95% of what gets us there.
Well, and when I can come in within that profit margin, and I'm not killing the other stuff, then that's just going to net, and that makes us a healthy company.
And not only do we have the profits, but with that process, with that trusted process, the stress is so much less, because like Jeremy was mentioning, you have to think about it. Am I redoing this? It's like the first time I'm seeing it, I have to remember everything that I need to do. When you have a well-documented process, it is freeing. You just trust in it. And once you do the checklist, once you complete the work breakdown structure, you can rest assured that it's done, and it's complete. You don't have to go back and rethink about it. So people sleep a lot better at night.
Well, Jim, obviously AV9000, you're related to some people who've used that before. Within that, talked about predictable, talked about reducing variation. Where do you see, where's the big gain for you? Because again, people all over the place use the word process, but I think you guys have made it part of your DNA. It's not a bad word. It's not a bad 7-letter word. And also, how do you involve your people in improving those processes and really owning them?
Yeah. So, well, the first part of the question, I would say that consistency is probably the best thing about it. You know, you go to some integrators, and if you get Joey as the project manager, it's a slam dunk. It's going to be a great project. But if you get Cindy, she's new, you know, there's no process, and you're not going to have a good experience. But when you have a quality process down, it doesn't matter who touches your project. The end game is going to be consistent and according to the specification. So it's just more reliable. Yeah, and I'm sorry, the second part of your question.
Well, just again, how do you get your people to play? I mean, because again, a lot of times process is dictated, and people go, "Oh, Jim did it to me."
Do you know? The simple question is just ask them. Like, everyone has grumbles. Everyone has a mental list, or maybe even a written down list. Oh, I hate when this happens. This could be improved. This could be, but no one asked them. So if you just spend a little bit of time and say, "Hey, how can we improve this finite process?" They are all over it with recommendations, right? I mean, Jeremy will send out an email and just get flooded with improvement ideas, and some can be implemented, some can't, but it's just a matter of listening to your team, you know, and I find more often than not, leadership or management thinks that they know it all. They're so far removed from the field, and they're not asking the people in the field doing the actual work, how can we make it a little bit better? And we're only talking incremental, right? Because especially once you have a documented process, just those little tiny things, they give you a point back here and there, and it just, you know, you start to realize the profits.
Yeah, I was doing some math today on just like terminations, and you know, the numbers that a company would do, and if I took 30 seconds off of every termination,
exactly,
it was like I think I come up with $150,000 with 40 people doing terminations. It's like, and that's just 30 seconds a piece. And you're just like going, it's all, guys, we eat an elephant a fork at a time, you know, and it's really, you guys have bought that continuous, consistent process improvement. And go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can even gamify it. You can have a termination Olympics and say, all right, let's see who's the termination master in the shop fabrication, and whoever does it faster. All right, team, let's gather on. What are you doing that's different from the other person? Just see
right,
what
it's really, again, pushing down and then rewarding people for honesty, for growth, all the stuff that's basically part of the culture that Jeremy just talked about.
Yeah.
And so, Jeremy, again, I'm with lots of clients and lots of people, and I speak at conventions, and they say, Brad, are you going to say the same damn thing you always say? And I'm like, well, are you going to listen this time? And they're like, usually not. And I'm like, okay, well, then I guess I am. You know, so you and I have given out lots of videos, Jim, you and I also. It's like, so the people who pay lip service to them, to this kind of conversation, what guidance would you give them? Or I can say, we've led the horse to water. What can make them drink?
Wow. You know, if that
was a big question.
That was a big question. And if it was easy to answer this, I think we would have less of a quality issue across the industry. Wow. What would I try to encourage? I would try to encourage incremental steps. I think one of the things that are a challenge when you really start, and Brad, honestly, you would know better than I would because of your background in quality, but when you really start to look at quality as a practice, and you really start to try to take all that is quality management in, it can be quite overwhelming because it feels like, oh, wow, I have to implement process change, and I have to implement checklists, and I have to implement huge amounts of change. We'll just call it change, because just like project management, it's really change management. And this is project change management for an organizational's DNA and how they deliver and execute on the product that they sell. But it doesn't have to be an all or nothing conversation. There's opportunities to take steps towards processizing your mindset. And that's really, you know, process does get thrown around a lot, but if you approach everything within an organization with how can we build a process around this? How can we scale this? That's how you then can scale beyond the team, the A team that Jim mentioned, right? You have this great team that does a great job every time. Well, how can you take what they know and build a process around it? Just some of those concepts. So staging, you know, and I'm gonna hit on AV9000 for a second. One of the first things that AV9000 talks about is before you get way off into the weeds of trying to implement all aspects of this type of quality management system, just start with pre-staging your systems. Just open the boxes at your facility, take that equipment out, hook it up, do whatever basic testing you're already doing in the field. Generally everybody's installing something, doing some level of acceptance testing. Just do that in the shop and then pack it back up and take it out into the field and get feedback from your team members, get feedback from the people that are having to be in the field and delivering. And that one, I don't even want to call it a small step because it's a pretty large step. It requires space to be able to accomplish it. But that one step towards quality management, time and time again, has some of the largest impacts on profits, on consistency. Just to tell a quick story, we did a couple of projects in India last year, and the idea of staging in India was a completely foreign concept when we arrived over there. And that was one of the fundamental things that we had asked our partner to do. To give you a little bit of context, we had the customer and we used a subcontractor over in India to provide equipment and installation services, but then we went over and did the final acceptance and commissioning of the system. And we asked them to find a space to be able to take this stuff out, turn the power on, get IP addresses loaded, pull down MAC addresses, do data collection. And they had never done this before. And they balked at it because, again, it was, well, why don't we just do it in the room? Why don't we just, try to minimize? And so there was a process of understanding that if you're doing it in the room for the first time, you've already lost the opportunity for efficiency gain. And when we went over there and said, well, let's lay out 50 systems all here in the same room, and we're going to go through this process of all this data collection and all this IP addressing, and it clicked for them. And now I've got very good friends at that integration partner in India. They do this on every project. And that's the only step they've taken towards employing a quality management system, is just unboxing the stuff and doing as much as they can in the shop or in a staging area before taking it to the room. Some of these jobs are 300, 400, 500 rooms at a time. And think about, you just talked about 30 seconds a connector. Think about every time somebody has to walk back to the truck to get something that they forgot. Yeah. Times 300 rooms, right? So one of the things we love to do is measure on how many trips to the truck do you have to take. If you can reduce the trips to the truck by 1 or 2 times, your profit goes through the roof. That all happens with that staging process. So that's where I would recommend dipping the toe in.
Awesome. Great. So we always ask, what business books you're reading. So I'll ask both of you what business, and you can do another book, but we like the business ones. What are you reading and what are you learning from it?
Go for it, Jim.
Yeah, I just finished up Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He's a retired Navy SEAL and just an all-around incredible guy. I was about to say a bad word, but just an awesome guy. And the biggest takeaway for me was discipline equals freedom. And that's something he would push into his teams and his leaders. And it's absolutely true. Like if you have a process, if you follow that process, if you do it with discipline, it is completely freeing because you trust in the process. You don't have to stress about it, and you just do it consistently, and you just get your evenings back, and you can sleep well at night. So that
well, and then that ownership is I'm taking ownership of the process also. And if it isn't working, own it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I'll have to remember. Yeah, cool. Discipline is freedom.
Yeah.
New buzzword for me. Awesome. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Jeremy?
So the book I'm currently reading is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And this came out of a culture club. We have a culture club at level 3 once a month where we just come together and talk about what's going on in people's lives. And this has been a game changer for me. And I'll just say that in 2020, leaders have been more challenged in ways that they never thought possible. And it's been harder to stand up and lead our organizations than ever before. It's been a very, very trying time. It's been challenging from a business perspective. And the core of this book is a great reminder that everybody is still looking for the leaders to lead, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable, stand up and represent and lead, because it's needed, honestly, now more than ever.
It is a yearning. Absolutely. Yeah. I thank you both, Jim Maltese, Jeremy Elsesser. So I appreciate the time with you. And again, hope to see you sometime soon, not in front of a camera. So I'll look forward to it. And again, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.